Good evening. I'm Mark Kogler, Chair, and I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of December 14th, 2021. Our first item of business, which is actually our second, is the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like you to invite you to stand, face the flag, and join me, if you would, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Staff, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Gibson.
Here.
Commissioner Jorgensen.
Here.
Commissioner Neal.
Here.
Commissioner Davis.
Here.
Commissioner Covarrubias.
Here.
And Commissioner Christensen. And Commissioner Christensen let us know he'd be absent tonight. And Chairperson Kogler.
Here. Thank you for doing that. Staff introductions, please.
Yes, I'm Darren Nash, the city planner. With us today, we have Jessica Ferguson, Marcy Reynoso, and Katie Bannister. And then remote tonight is Darcy Delgado. And we also have the city attorney, Isaac Rosen.
David.
City engineer David Athey is also in attendance, as well as Roger Oxborough, the airport manager.
Very good. Thank you, Darren. Item number E on our agenda are general public comments regarding matters not on the agenda this evening. Are there anyone who would like to offer any comments on anything, again, that's not on our agenda? Do you have note of any, Jessica?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll move on to our next item. Item F, agenda items proposed to be tabled or rescheduled. Do we have any that fall in those categories?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. We will then move into kind of the substance part of our meeting, the public hearings. Item G. Our first public hearing is City Airport Tentative Track Map 3188 and Street Abandonment 21-01, P21-0031. The applicant is the City of Paso Robles. There are a variety of APNs associated with this particular project as noted in the agenda, but the project is generally on Dry Creek Road, Second Wind Way, and Cloud Way. With that, is there a staff report, please?
Yes, there is. Thank you, Chairperson Kogler. There we are. So as you stated, this is for a tentative track map 3188, which will be out at the airport. So here's a general location map. You can see Airport Road running north-south off to the left of the screen. And then you've got Dry Creek Road running to the south of track 3188, which is shown in the red box. You can see the Estrella Warbirds Museum is at the eastern extent of the track map. So there are 11 existing lots that are going to be impacted by the map that's before you, and then the map does result in a total of 12 proposed lots for a net gain of 1 lot. The track map is largely to facilitate airport lease sites and circulation in this kind of neighborhood of the airport. The track map does include the abandonment of a road that's known as Cirrus Way. This is an unconstructed road, but it does exist as a legal right-of-way. To replace Cirrus Road, there is a new road proposed. It's proposed to be named Right Way, and it would be a cul-de-sac ending road. There are also a series of easements that are both proposed and abandoned as a part of this track map. And the track map does need to be approved by the City Council, so the Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to the City Council this evening. So here is parcel map PRAL 80-53. This is a lot line adjustment that was recorded back in 1980, and it kind of established the general circulation and lot pattern along Dry Creek Road. There have been a number of amendments and lot line adjustments and lot mergers over the years. They are enumerated in the staff report, but I'm not going to go into all that detail, although we certainly can if needed. But essentially, it does result in this general, the situation out on the ground looks like this today. And so you can see the lots that have numbers on them. They range between 39 and 54. They're not entirely numerical, but these are the lots that are involved this evening. In addition, there is a remainder lot that some of the airport runways are on, and so some of that will be consumed into parcel 45 at the eastern extent of the check map. You can see that there are currently, there's Cloudway, Second Windway, and then Cirrus Way going into the site. And so Cirrus Way is the road that will be abandoned. So here you can see that Cirrus Way is going to be abandoned, and then Right Way will be established between lots 48 and 47. In addition, as I mentioned, the Astoria Warbirds lot, which is lot 45, will be extended out to the east. It'll add, this isn't exact, but to give you a representation of land that will be added to that lot. So that gets taken from the lot that holds all of the airport runways, and then it gets put in for the use of the Astoria Warbirds Museum. So now we're going to be moving from right to left on the screen. So like I said, 45 gets changed. In addition, lots 42 and 47 will be split from each other. And so you'll end up with 2 5-acre lots there, 42 and 47. And then further east, the lot line between lot 53 and 54 will be moved now in blue, so that the northwest running property line will be made straight all the way up to that airport taxiway F. So these are the lots that are changed. So by roads being abandoned, lots move, and then the couple of lot splits and lot line adjustments there. So now this is what essentially the area would look like. Actually, I didn't have the animations I was hoping for here. So we've got Cirrus Way. I seem to have gone back. Okay, so here is more or less what it would look like. Cirrus Way is gone, Right Way is established, and a couple of new lots and some lot lines moved around. In addition, there are some easements that are established by the parcel map. So lot 40 would be a landlocked parcel because Cirrus Way is abandoned. So there's some access easements proposed at the southern end of lot 39 that would provide access to lot 40. There's a no-build easement established between lots 39 and 40. There are some existing public utilities easements that run on the east and west sides of Cirrus Way. Those would be abandoned. There's some existing utilities easements around a road that was abandoned several years ago. I believe it was called Stratus Way. That road is abandoned, but the public utilities easements were not. And so this map would abandon those easements. And then this map would establish some easements. You see the blue line now where the Astoria Warbirds Museum is. That's an easement for a water line that's already been established. There would be easements around Right Way for public utilities, and then there would be a drainage easement that would run along the north end of lots 39 to 45. So there are a lot of little changes that get made by this map that result in a little bit of confusion, but hopefully that clarified what is before the Planning Commission this evening. In addition, the next item on the agenda is an RV storage facility that Mr. Joe Gowan has proposed, just to give some context for the rest of the evening. This is the site where it says the Dry Creek RV storage. That's where the RV storage was previously approved. And this evening, you'll be looking at an amendment that would move the Dry Creek RV storage to the east, to the other side of Right Way. And that is to eventually facilitate Triana using more of the land for an enlarged lease site for their facility. So here's a look at the first page of the track map. You can see kind of the summary that we've already gone over. And then we've got the additional 2 pages. Happy to zoom into anything that anyone has questions about when I've completed my report here. So the recommendation that the Planning Commission will be making a recommendation to the City Council. There are some findings that must be made by the planning, or ultimately by the City Council, but you would be recommending findings for the City Council that the project is consistent with the general plan, with the zoning ordinance, and with the airport master plan. That the site is physically suitable for the type of development that's proposed, that it's not likely to cause any substantial environmental damage, no serious public health problems, and it won't conflict with any easements. So those are the findings in the draft staff report for Planning Commission's consideration. In addition, the resolution includes a statement that the project is consistent with previous environmental review, that this subdivision is consistent with the impacts that were anticipated by the mitigated negative declaration that was prepared for the 2004 update of the airport master plan. This project is largely a lot line adjustment and really just facilitates the leases that the southern portion of the airport is intended for. So as always, the Planning Commission does have options. The first would be to adopt the resolution as it's proposed. Second, you could recommend approval with modifications. You could refer the project back to staff if you need more information, or you could deny the project by finding findings of denial. Staff does recommend option 1, which would adopt the resolution and recommend the project to the City Council for their approval. And that is the conclusion of staff's report.
Thank you, Katie. You and your graphics did a very nice job explaining that. It makes a lot more sense than when I was wading through in the packet. We will start off with questions of staff from the Planning Commission. I think I'll start with those in the room and then go to our 2 remote commissioners. Commissioner Jorgensen, any questions for staff? No questions. Commissioner Davis.
You know, I was on DRC, so I'm familiar with this. Katie, just for information, could you clarify lot 45? Is that an expansion, just a lot line adjustment? I think it's where the museum, Warburg Museum is. So it's mostly as explanation.
It's just a lot line adjustment. It would expand the size of lot 45 and reduce the size of the remainder parcel where the actual runways are located. If you look at the aerial, you can see that the museum is already using some of that land for storage, and so it looks like this would formalize that. We do also have the airport manager in the room, so if you have any questions for him, he also...
No, I just needed a quick explanation. No, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal. No questions. I have no questions either. Commissioner Gibson, any questions for staff?
I have basically just one. Again, and I also want to commend you, Katie. I mean, your illustrations took away pretty much all my questions except for one, so because I was confused. I do have one question, and it would seem that the Airport Advisory Committee would have weighed in on this. I was wondering, because it seems like this is the impetus of this is the city. The applicant is the city. Is the Airport Advisory Committee reviewed this and are in favor of this as well?
So Mr. Oxborough is in the room. He is shaking his head yes, that it was reviewed by that committee. If you want details, we would have to ask Roger to come to the microphone.
No, I'm satisfied. If Roger is shaking his head yes, then I'm good. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gibson. Commissioner Covarrubias, any questions for staff?
No, sir, no questions.
Okay, thank you. This time then we'll open the public hearing on this and take testimony that anybody has. Is there anybody in the room who would like to comment on this particular proposal? Do we have any remote?
No, sir, we do not.
We do not. Seeing no comments, I will close the public hearing and bring this back to the Planning Commission. Discussion by the Planning Commission, again in the room first. Same sequence, Commissioner Jorgensen. Okay, no points. Commissioner Davis? Nothing. Commissioner Neal? I have nothing either. Commissioner Gibson, any further discussion on this?
No, sir, I do not. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Covarrubias.
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay, very good.
Chairperson Kogler, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, please do.
Recommend City Council approve tentative track map 3188 by adopting draft resolution.
I'll second that.
Motion for Commissioner Neal, a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, I would ask staff to please call the roll.
Chairperson Neal,
Aye.
Chairperson Davis,
Aye.
Chairperson Covarrubias,
Aye.
Chairperson Gibson,
Aye.
Chairperson Jorgensen,
Aye.
and Chairperson Kogler.
Aye. Motion passes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Very good, thank you. Move on to our next item, item number 2, under G of public hearings. This is a public hearing, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, for the Gowan RV Storage Facility. Did I say that right? Close enough. Storage Facility Development Plan 21-08 and Conditional Use Permit 21-24 P21-0087. The applicant is Mr. Joe Gowan, 4050 Dry Creek Road. That property is 025-0471-035. Could we have a staff report, please?
Commissioner Kogler, may I make a comment, please?
Yes.
I need to abstain from voting on this item as I'm very familiar with it, and Mr. Goen had approached me for financing.
Okay. Commissioner Covarrubias will step aside for this item. Staff report, please.
Give us just a moment as we bring up that presentation. Okay, so the first order of business is to point out a major omission from the staff report that was printed and presented to the planning commissioners. Exhibit A, which should have begun on page 54, was omitted from the staff report. These are the site-specific conditions of approval. These have been provided to the applicant, and all of the members of the commission who are here in the room have been given a copy. Mr. Gibson, I've put a copy in the chat for this meeting. Are you able to access that, the Exhibit A?
If perhaps if you can tell me, where do I find the chat? Where show conversation?
Yeah, so in the in Teams there is a little icon that looks like two people sitting. No, it's the chat. It's a little text box, like a cartoon text box. If you push that, you'll be able to see the chat for this meeting, and there's an exhibit in the chat. Are you able to see that?
No, not so far.
Jessica, are you able to email that to Mr. Gibson? Okay, we're going to be emailing that to you as well, but it is there in the chat for you if you can continue to look for it. Okay.
All right, thank you.
So moving on to the actual presentation. So this is, as was stated, it's an RV storage facility proposed at 4050 Dry Creek Road, which is on the, would be the northeast corner of the future right-way and Dry Creek Road. So here is the location. We just discussed tract 3188, which is in the box in red, and right way is now shown in orange. It's will be a new road that will be created by tract 3188. It would end in a cul-de-sac. So Mr. Gowan's project was previously approved by this body back in October of last year on the property to the west of right way, it was requested that he move his project to facilitate the expansion of Triana Winery to the west of the site. So the new site that is under consideration this evening is now in yellow with the big star. So this is to the east of Right Way. So the airport land use plan does envision commercial and industrial lease sites along Dry Creek Road. And so in the red star, I think there's a box there, that's the general location. So you can see this is within the commercial industrial development area. And so this is to show the consistency of the project with the airport land use plan. So this is an RV storage facility that's going to be located in the airport zoning district with the PD overlay. The site is overall is about 5.3 acres. About 4.7 of acres of the site are usable due to access easement, or excuse me, utilities easements easements that ring the property. The site is east of Right Way. The project does include not quite 103,000 square feet of carport covers that would store about 195 RVs. This is very similar to the previously approved project that had a little bit more carport space, 108,000 square feet, but was only for 193 RVs, but very, very similar. And again, a 680 square foot office. The development plan and the conditional use permit can be approved by the Planning Commission this evening. This does not need action by the City Council. So looking at the site plan on the left side, the slightly smaller site plan is the previously approved site plan that Planning Commission approved last year. As you can see on the right, this is just a mirror image of what was proposed previously. The site has a slightly different size because Dry Creek Road does curve up to the north, and so you end up with a little bit of a different size. And then there is a public utilities easement along the east side that was not that is dissimilar to the previously approved site. So now the site will be entered from the west side, and there is a little office here, and then of course you've got all the RV storage buildings, and then as I already mentioned, there's a public utilities easement on the east side. So in the previously approved project, there were 3 parking spaces proposed, and the Planning Commission did request that, or did add a condition of approval that required at least 3 more parking spaces to be added. So you can see here, this is very similar, the 3 parking spaces as were originally approved, and the applicant has included 3 additional places that are off towards the east side of your screen, the right side of your screen. So there are a total of 6 parking spaces now proposed. This is a reduction of the number of parking spaces that would typically be required for a storage yard. However, the conditions of approval require the applicant to allow folks to park in their parking style. Their normal car can park where their RV would normally be parked when they take the RV out for use. So there's essentially more parking available on site. So looking at the landscape plan, the new plan does include stormwater basins that run along the perimeter of the site. You can see them in the top right-hand corner. That's the civil plan, the stormwater plan. So I've highlighted the green area. That's where there's some landscape stormwater basins. And then the landscaping is kind of in the same general area, but you should be aware that there is going to be a basin in that area. So that will impact how the landscape will appear. There was some discussion at the Development Review Committee. The project does include some operable panels. The fire department needed access. These buildings are very long, and the fire department needed access at more points. And so the architect has included some doors within some screening panels. You can see here in green that there's some doors. And so the applicant is demonstrating here that they will leave a path to those doors open without landscaping so that the fire department does have access. I was previously under a misapprehension that the entire panels moved, and so thought more of the landscaping needed to be reoriented, but it's really just a man door here where the firefighters are going to need some access. And so there's some paths shown here that will not include landscaping. There is also, so this kind of moves to the rear of the site. The LAD, low impact development basins do continue along the rear and side property lines. There's no landscaping proposed along the rear property line, but there is a condition of approval included in the document handed to you this evening that would require the applicant to put some vining plants on the fence along the rear property line that would screen the RVs from the north. Here's a look at the landscaping materials. Another condition of approval that's included this evening, and I think is something we might want to discuss, is that one of the conditions is this number B, would limit the shrubs in the front and street side setback to no more than 3 feet in height except for vining plants. The intent here was in the municipal code, there is a requirement that shrubs not be more than 3 feet in height, similar to a fence in the front and side setbacks. So the idea here would be that, low shrubs would be allowed, but not really tall plants. There are some plant varieties included in the the plant palette that would be too tall for these areas. The idea is to try to balance screening with making the development look like a fortress. And, I think we certainly don't want to see all of the screening, but we want there to be tasteful landscaping. So this is a condition that's been added and maybe needs some further refinement or discussion. Let's see what we have here. So here now moving into the elevations, the buildings are really long. And so as you've noted in the staff report, they're hard to parse. And so here's a kind of zoom in on what the west elevation would look like from right way. You can see the office building and then some fencing, and then the tall building starts off to the left and does continue to the north. Similarly, on Dry Creek Road, you've got the office there on the left, and then you can see the buildings as they'll look as it kind of zoomed in, and then that building does continue off to the east, which would be the right of the screen. So here are the the storage building proposed materials. It is a mix of dark gray standing seam wall panels interspersed with light gray corrugated metal roof panels. In addition, there are some areas that have this bronze colored perforated metal panel. These will screen, but not completely. It'll make the building feel less like a fortress is the idea. And so you've got this mixture of materials on these low, long buildings. And then you can see these again kind of a little bit closer in on that elevation. The office is made up of very similar building materials. It's a dark gray standing seam metal wall panels, and then you've got that black fencing. I do want to point out that fencing is proposed at an 8-foot height, and so that is also something the Planning Commission is approving this evening. Typically, we don't allow fences taller than 6 feet unless the Planning Commission or the DRC approves a taller fence. So here is a view of the project from Dry Creek Road. You can see the mix of materials and the landscaping provided at the front to continue to screen. And you do get glimpses of RVs, but for the most part, the site is very well screened. There are a series of conditions of approval that address the operation of the project. This is a conditional use permit as well as a development plan. There's a condition, and this was in the previous resolution as well, the previous approval, that don't allow renters to really work on their boats or RVs that are stored on the site, that they need to go and do that somewhere else. The number 10 addresses the parking and allows the renters to park within the stalls. Number 11 would not allow a sort of other additional outdoor storage that's not designated in those RV storage spaces that's on the site plan. Storage would be limited just to RVs, boats, and other vehicle storage only. Any fabric or tarp style vehicle covers would need to be securely fastened so we don't have things blowing in the wind and looking unsightly. And then the fence and landscape screening needs to be maintained over time. There are some additional conditions of approval that haven't been mentioned before, and I'm going through these arduously because they were not included in the staff report. Number 6 would require that Tract 3188 be recorded before we issue a building permit for Mr. Gowan's project. Right now, his project would be within some access easements and would not have access via right way, and so that tract map does need to be recorded for him to get building permits issued. And then there are some engineering and airport-related conditions of approval that would not allow reflective construction materials, would not allow the creation of electromagnetic emissions that would disrupt the navigation equipment on the airport. The project would not create obstacles or anything over 100 feet above the published airport elevation. And then there's a condition that talks about constructing frontage improvements. Mr. Athey had referred to it as relocated Cirrus Way. It is proposed to be right way, and so we might perhaps want to change that condition of approval. And I believe the applicant would like to discuss this and maybe has some questions about this condition of approval that they might bring up when they have an opportunity to speak. So there are a series of findings the Planning Commission must make. There are some related to the development plan. The project's consistent with the general plan, the zoning ordinance, and the airport master plan. That, it's aesthetically, it has high aesthetic quality. It's compatible with neighboring development, and that it doesn't generate too much traffic. The conditional use permit also has findings that need to be made, that the establishment and operation of the land use won't be detrimental to the public health, safety, and morals of the community, that the won't be the project won't be injurious or detrimental to general welfare of the city. and that it won't be detrimental to the city's efforts to revitalize the downtown. I think it's important to remember, it's not everyone's favorite project to see storage, but having a storage facility like this does give folks a place to store their RVs so that they don't end up in neighborhoods where they really do crowd up and cause clutter within neighborhoods. The Planning Commission is asked to reduce the parking requirement this evening, so there is a finding that the parking demand will be less than required for typical storage uses, so that's included in your resolution as well. The environmental determination that's recommended for the Planning Commission this evening is a Class 32 exemption. Class 32 exemptions are appropriate for projects that are consistent with the general plan and all of the other applicable plans and policies, which this project is. The site needs to be within city limits and on a site of no more than 5 acres. This site is, the usable area of this site is under 5 acres, just about 4 3/4 acres. So it's pushing that size limit, but is under that size threshold. The site does not have any value as habitat for endangered, rare, threatened species. The airport did have some biological surveys done on the site related to a different project just within the last 5 years, and did not find any of the habitat that we have found in other places on the airport. The project would not result in any significant effect to traffic noise, air quality, and water quality, and certainly there are adequate utilities to serve the project. Options before the Planning Commission would be to adopt the draft resolution to approve the plan development and the conditional use permit. You could amend and adopt the draft resolution. You could refer the project back to staff, or you could deny the draft resolution and the project based on a determination that it doesn't meet one or more of the required findings. Staff is recommending that basically a number 2 option, that you approve the draft resolution, but do add the site-specific conditions of approval that were inadvertently omitted. I've got them all listed here. I'm not going to go through because we've all got them in front of us, unless certainly Mr. Gibson, you need to see them. We can go through them slowly, but they're here. And I believe that is the end of staff's report. So here's a photo of the site. It's very flat. It's regularly mowed and not of much, there's no oak trees on this site. So this is definitely a suitable site for a large RV storage facility as proposed. And that is the end of staff's report.
Thank you, Katie. Does the applicant or representative have any presentation that they would like to provide?
No, I think Katie covered everything. She did a great job, so I think I'm good.
Could you identify yourself for the record, name and address, please?
Joe Gowen, and 1330 South Bethel, Templeton, California, 93465.
Thank you. Okay. With that input, we will turn it back to the commission for questions that we would have of staff, potentially the applicant as well. This time I'll start outside of the room with Commissioner Gibson. Do you have questions that you would like to offer?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go inward. Commissioner Neal? No questions. Commissioner Davis?
Katie, as I understand it, with the COP, there can't be any maintenance or repair on site. So is there a management team that would oversee that, or is that a city enforcement of that COP?
Yes, that would require city enforcement if we found that there was a lot of maintenance or other businesses operating out of the site. This is really just, you're approving a storage use, not a maintenance yard.
Oh, this is Joe. Yeah, and I want to no maintenance there as far as like mechanical work or any painting, because I want to keep it super clean and have it more of a high end RV storage for the nicer motorhome boats. And so I won't allow any mechanical work on site.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
If you would be kind enough to hold your comments until the Planning Commission offers their questions, I'll come back to you and see if you have anything that you would like to address as well.
Oh, okay.
No problem. Mr. Jorgensen.
Yes, I have a question for Katie. I remember the project when we saw it the first time, and I was on DRC this time and reviewed it. But what I'm a little confused at is the Exhibit A that was the addendum that we received. How does this differ, the site-specific conditions of approval? Do these differ, or if so, how from our original approval at the other site?
So they are almost identical. I know I made a change to the landscaping plan, to, the 3 feet in height. That was a small amendment. And then number 8, requiring a low wall to be in front of any mechanical equipment placed between the buildings and the street. Mr. Gowan actually applied for building permits before he was asked to move the site. And so we've looked at it one time and it got into another level of specificity. And the air conditioner, it's just a mini split. So it's a small unit, but it was proposed in front of the building. And so I added a condition that a low wall be put in front of that to screen. I believe those are the only changes that I'm aware of, any, substantive changes.
Okay, and then just one more clarification on the 3-foot height for the shrubs. That, did I understand you to say that is zoning in the setbacks?
It is in the zoning ordinance. It's intended for like hedges that act as a fence, and so it kind of puts a height limit on those. Yeah. The applicant isn't proposing a hedge per se, but some of the plants that they selected have a tendency to get more like 6 or 8 feet tall, and so the intent was to keep the landscaping lower. You would have trees that are tall and then lower landscaping. But if the Planning Commission feels that it'd be appropriate to have those more 6-8 foot tall shrubs, which would certainly screen the building more efficient, more completely than a low 3-foot building, we certainly could look at amending that condition of approval.
All right, thank you.
Well, picking up on that was the only line of question I had too. Kate, if you go back to the perspective sketch you had that you presented that had like a motorhome on the left side of it and was the front of the building from Dry Creek Road, that showed the landscaping in concept. I guess my question is, or maybe it's more of I'll pose it a question. Is it really necessary to retain those plant materials at a 3 foot maximum height when we've got all of this frontage? And as you indicated, we are trying to kind of soften a very long building. This is a open, relatively moderate speed roadway. It seems that something that looks more like that, instead of retaining all of the ground level plantings at a constant 3 feet maximum, perhaps works better. Just as a note, maybe we can come back and discuss that, but I was just curious. So this simply complies largely with the code, and that's where that 3 foot comes from.
So like I said, the zoning code really is talking to hedges. And so that's sort of where the 3 foot height came from, but it's not necessarily, like, it doesn't mean that you can't have, a shrub or, individual plants that are taller than that in a front or side setback. I specifically pointed it out because it's definitely a condition that may or may not be the best one. And so it's like a point of discussion. But the idea was that you wouldn't have, it's, in my opinion, it's not ideal when you have, often in the median of a freeway, you'll have lots and lots of oleanders that are just a really constant, really tall height. And I would hope that that's not the intention here. And so it would be a mix of heights, and maybe a mix of heights would be a better phrasing as opposed to saying, nothing over 3 feet in height. But as you stated, the conceptual landscape plan, that's, they're not showing that overwhelming shrubbery. So maybe the condition is not the best. It's not written in the best terms.
Okay, thank you. You addressed my question. We can come back to that during our discussion of this. Mr. Gowan, did you have anything to add based on Planning Commission questions? Otherwise, we'll move into open the public hearing. Okay.
Thank you.
We will open the public hearing on this. Is there anybody in the council chambers tonight who would like to speak to this
Chairperson
item?
Kogler?
Yes.
I believe Shauna Reese with the design team is trying to come through. Shauna, we cannot hear you. I don't know if your microphone's not on or not.
I haven't tried to say anything yet. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. We can just see you blinking at us.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for this evening. And I did want to mention on just the plant height and the shrub height, I could see that there would be some reason for maintaining less than 3 feet near the entry, just for visual, for people coming and going out of the corners of the property and out of the entry and exit for the site. If that was something that wanted to be part of the condition as well, just because that 3 foot height limit would allow visual distance, which is also has to do with wall heights and stuff that you guys have in your guys' ordinance. And then I'm happy to answer any questions too, specific to the design, but didn't seem like any came up. So that's all.
Yep, thank you. We can come back and address that, I think, when we get closer to a discussion and motion. The hearing is now open. As I indicated before, is there anybody in the room this evening that would like to speak to this item? I see none. Do we have any callers?
No, sir, we do not.
If we do not, we will close the public hearing and bring this back to the Planning Commission for discussion. Again, I'll go outside. Commissioner Gibson, any discussion points on this?
I think the only thing that I'm hearing that it is a consideration is the landscaping, and I am questioning the verbiage, as Katie indicated, about the limiting the height of the landscape to 3 feet. The picture that's up on the screen is something I find very attractive, and I would much prefer to see something like that we have a variation of height. I understand the idea of not having a wall of plants, but the picture is presented with smaller trees or smaller shrubbery in front, and then trees in back, I think is very attractive, and also helps to break up the tall walls of a long building. So I would much prefer to see something like that, but that would be my only comment.
I would agree with Commissioner Gibson's comments that he just made. Something, I think 3 feet when we've got 17-foot height is out of proportion. So I would, some wording, something like limit shrubs in the front and side streets setback to various heights, not to exceed, fill in the blank, 6 feet, 8 feet, something like that. Other than that, I think the project's great.
Thank you. Commissioner Davis.
I think the project's great too, and I agree with Commissioner Gibson. What I see on that screen with the diversity of heights, especially in the front, is very appealing. So I think I don't want to see a uniform height. I kind of like the language of Commissioner Jorgensen.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Neal?
No, I was on Planning Commission when this was approved, and I liked it then, and I like its mirror as much. So no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no further question or discussion points. I concur on the landscaping as well. With that,
Mr. Kogler?
yes,
You have one more commissioner out. Mr. Covarrubias.
he was conflicted on this
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's not in this particular item. He'll join
Got
us
it.
for the next. Is there a motion?
I will attempt the motion with the adjustments. Adopt draft resolution A, attachment 4, approving plan development 21-08 and conditional use permit 21-24 based on findings and subject to site-specific conditions of approval. Editing site-specific condition of approval 7B to say front landscaping shall be varied in height not to exceed 6 feet with a limit of 3 feet at the entry to the project off Dry Creek.
Here we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A second from Commissioner Jorgensen. Is there any further discussion by commission here in chambers or Mr. Gibson? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask staff, please call the question.
Commissioner Neal,
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen,
Aye.
Commissioner Davis,
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson,
Aye.
and Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Item passes 5-0.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Covarrubias will rejoin the meeting now. As we move into public hearing number 3 for this evening, it's the Beechwood Specific Plan Phase 1A, Vesting Tentative Track Map 3166 and Master Plan PD 21-11, P21-0102. The applicant is Herod Paso LP. Project is located at the southeast corner of Beechwood Drive and Meadowlark Road. Beechwood Specific Plan Phase 1A, APNs 009-863-003, 04, 08, 10, 11, and 12. And there was an addendum to this agenda item which came out regarding changes to item number 3, Exhibit O on page 40. And I believe, is that the section, correct me if I'm wrong, staff, about the imagery for the precedent imagery for the California modern architectural style? Was that the addendum or was there something else involved with that? Okay, very good, thank you. So it is that sheet. So with that, I would ask for a staff report, please.
And can we confirm Commissioner Covarrubias is back online?
Rob, are you there?
I am present. Thank you.
Very good, welcome back.
Great, thank you, Chairperson Kogler, members of the commission. As you mentioned, the Beechwood specific plan is before us tonight, and specifically Phase 1A. So a year ago, October, the Beechwood specific plan was approved for the properties at the southwest section of the city along Beechwood Drive, south of Meadowlark, in between Meadowlark and Creston Road. Looking up at the screen here, the vicinity area, the dashed outline is the specific plan area, the entire specific plan, which was approved back in October. What we're looking at this evening is what's considered Phase 1A. It's planning areas A, B, C1, C2, H, and then G is the community park, which is included in the project tonight as context. So we'll be looking at this evening the specific plan, which is the master development plan, along with the tentative track map. The applicants are Ray Herod, Mike Herod, Herod Paso Limited Partnership are the applicants. Rick Engineering is with us this evening. Jeremy Friend is the project planner, along with Jeff Barfield. Then Tom Martin is the civil engineer with Rick Engineering. Then there's a landscape architect online as well. So I'm going to run through just an initial introduction of the what we're looking at this evening, and then Jeremy is going to run through the project presentation from Rick Engineering, which will have a lot of the specific information, and then we'll wrap up with I'll go through kind of the options the Planning Commission has and the recommendations. So this evening, we're looking for the Planning Commission to review the Master Development Plan, which includes the PD, the development plan for the phase as well. We'll be also looking at two requests the Commission approve vesting tentative tract map 3166. It was indicated 204 residential lots, but it actually is 205. There is a existing house located on Beechwood Drive that is on lot 205 as shown on the tentative map. So with that, 205 residential lots, 30 non-residential lots for a total of 235 lots. And then we also have before you a list of street names requesting to be reviewed and approved. So when the Planning Commission reviewed the specific plan, there was discussion at the time about the timing of development plans. As you recall, when we came through with the Olson South Chandler plan, there was a lot of information provided with the Olson South Chandler plan, more information on site planning, neighborhoods, building types, colors, materials, all those things were included in the Olson South Chandler plan. When the Beechwood plan came through, it was more of the site planning, the areas, the types of developments, the general plan densities, the specific plan densities, but it really didn't get down into the specific site planning and architectural information. So the Beechwood specific plan had this flow chart that is up here on the right that kind of outlined the the approval and entitlement process and when it would happen. It's going back here. So when we look at this, this table, the first block up here is the actual approval of the specific plan. And that was done back in October 2020. Then the next block is the subdivision of the properties into the large, what's called the large lot subdivision. There's multiple owners in the Beechwood specific plan area, and the large lot subdivision was done in order to create the larger parcels owned by separate ownership. Some owners own more than one large lot, but it also aligned with some of the backbone infrastructure roads. So that was the next step, the next intent of the process was for the large lot map, which has been submitted, which has been approved and recorded. So those have been done. The next step was what's called the master development plan. So the specific plan outlined that it was necessary to come forward to the Planning Commission for a master development plan. And that's what we are looking at here tonight. So the master development plan had a series of things here to take a look at. They got more in-depth site planning, but there's also a requirement for a development plan. And the development plan, which is this block, along with the tentative maps, was to come in together. And that's what we have tonight. We have the tentative map, which is taking the phase 1A, and is subdividing it up into the 205 parcels, along with the other parcels to make up the 235. And then the accompanying development plan is included with the tentative map. That's the information that you have in your packages and that we'll be presenting to you tonight. The last section here is some details to come back to the DRC. There are some architectural styles there are that is shown in some of the in the single family residential neighborhood, and but they're still conceptual. The specifics of the particular homes, getting more into floor plans, getting into materials and colors, getting into more of the specific front yard landscaping, where the fences are. Those kind of details are what is conditioned with this to come back to the DRC. The Harrods applicants are going through this process to get the entitlement for the project, including the tentative maps, but they're looking at selling to, with the possibility of selling to a builder that builds tract homes, that builds different models, has different architectural types. And those plans have not come into the city yet. And that's also how it was anticipated with the flow, that we still may not have all those particular specifics on each of the homes at the tentative map and development plan area timing, and that there would be some final details left up to the DRC to review as we move forward with the subdivision, as we move forward with the building plan check process for these types of, for these homes. A little bit long-winded, but that's kind of how this flow chart goes through. And then this gets more into the last half, the future entitlements or what we're doing tonight. The master development plan basically is saying, hey, we need to do the tentative map and we need to do the development plan. Those two together are the master development plan and the development plan. The DRC is then another step that happens to get some of the final details. This is a list of proposed street names the applicant provided. It's even more refined from the list that was given in the staff report. We got some additional feedback back from the county about some, the cross throughs on the right are have some conflicts throughout the county. So the list on the left is really what we have for review and approval tonight. I believe that with the list, there's a few more than the number of streets in phase one, so it should work in terms of the number of names. So with that, I'm going to have Jeremy Friend from Rick Engineering go through his presentation. However, Mr. Chairman, if we have any questions prior to the start, I'd be happy to try to answer those before Jeremy's project, if there are any questions.
Do any commissioners have initial questions for Mr. Nash? Hearing none, we'll proceed. Jeremy? Go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman and Chairperson. Appreciate the opportunity to present the Phase 1A of the Beach Area Specific Plan. It's been in the process since 2003 with Mike and Ray Haird, and so they're really looking forward to breaking ground soon. And this was a big step tonight. Tonight we have, as Darren mentioned, we have Tom Martin, be able to answer questions about civil engineering, myself, and Jeff Barfield is here to ask about planning questions, and Mike Salazar is a landscape architect about landscape questions. We also have the potential buyers of the first phase A here represented. That's Valley Community Builders as well, Valley Community Homes. So we are in the forefront of really putting this project through, and really want to break ground soon. And with everyone, part of the team, the entire team is here to be able to answer questions on this process. First couple of slides we're going to go through rather quickly because Darren hit on quite a few of them already. But the system plan was approved with an area of 234 acres, including 23 acres of an existing PG&E power easement, and their power easement. But we're focusing on this upper quadrant. BSP was approved back in October 2020 with a total of 911 units, a single family and a combination of multifamily, and approximately 47,000 square feet of commercial. Okay. As Darren mentioned, for the flow chart, where we are at and where it's already been going through, phase one, the specific plan was approved back in October, and the final large track map was approved and recorded in November of 2021. And we are focusing on what's called phase 1A, Master Development Plan, Investing Tentative Track Map 3166. That is our focus for tonight. Just to emphasize where we're at and what the Master Development area covers, it is Area 2, Area 1, and Area 5, as well as the community park. That's all part of phase 1A. Before you is the phase 1A sub areas. That is sub areas A, B, C1, C2, G, and H. And G is the park site. So what that is truly is just an allocation of the future park. And I'll go further into that, what that means in the process of designing of the park and when that park would be built out. But phase 1A sub areas is a total of 205 residential lots and 30 non-residential lots. And that residential lots are a combination of track amenities, whether it's the park site, private streets, water quality basins, and also open space lots.
The individual sub areas A, B, C, 2, and H is where the residential development is occurring. And this plan is proposing those different use types in those individual sub areas. C1, which is the future multifamily site, we've allocated, that's going to be a whole separate development plan process. We're just allocating the lotting, allowing the lot to be developed for future development. And for the design of the whole track, we identified a future, or a water quality basin, as well as the private street, which is our Oriole Way going through there. So sub area A is 33 single family homes, sites, 1 water quality basins, the existing single family lot, which is in this quadrant right there, as well as a portion of an amenity lot, which is actually a borderline along this northern half up here, as well as the interior private lots, the private streets. Sub-area B is the combination of single-family homes, 35 single-family alley lots, portion of an amenity lot, and private alley lots and private streets. C2 is 6 single-family residential lots, 28 residential lots, 3 enhanced park amenity lots, water quality basins. I do want to point that out that C2 is when we call out these estate lots, we call them estate lots. This is the heavily oaked area, and so some of these lots are going to be larger in size, and will be to accommodate slopes as well as designing around the existing oak trees. Which leaves us to sub-area H, which is 52 single-family lots, residential lots, 1 water quality basin, conservation open space lot, drainage basins, and as well as interior streets. So that all those sub-areas combined is a total of 205 residential lots and the 30 non-residential lots. The development plan that you see before you does identify all the lotting for this phase 1A. It identifies the street tree locations as well as future open space tree plan. With this master plan development, we are looking at consistency with the overall Beechwood specific plan. And what you see here in front of you is, and I'll go through all these criteria that we are in compliance with the BSP, the VTM, as well as the Master Development Plan are compliance and consistent with the BSP. And this list that you see before you is actually the same list that is the same criteria that needs to be submitted for a Master Plan application. So again, there's an additional level of consistency that these are the items that need to be identified and addressed to be qualified for a Master Development Plan. And therefore, we are consistent with the BSP. What you see here is a consistency between the original illustrative plan and the proposed Master Development Plan. The similarities are based on the same densities in the sub areas, the same similar dwelling units within the sub areas, and as well as road alignments, road improvements, the future park site, and identification of all the water quality basins. So the consistency within the two plans is identical to what you see before you. What this represents, again, is the BSP illustrative site plan on the right, and actually vesting map. And we've highlighted, because we're focused on A, B, C2, C1, and H. I've highlighted and outlined the same areas, same road configuration, same lotting pattern. So the map, the VESTA map is consistent with the actual illustrative and lotting pattern, master lotting plan that was designed to create the site plan through the BSP process. Through this process, there was street design was necessary, and the circulation pattern was important. And we identified, and where we're consistent with identical was in the specific plan, our road configurations, as well as the streetscapes, the multi-use pathways, and enhanced pedestrian connections. They all were like exact same locations, exact same pattern that was in this specific plan. The preservation of oak trees, that was a key item in the design of the phase 1A, in particular area C2. There is already an approved oak tree removal permit, and so there we are in compliance with that oak tree removal permit. We have designed around and complied with what's called the Mitigation Monitoring Reporting Criteria Bio 5, which outlines certain design criteria to protect the oak trees and preserve them. With that, we identify in our plans that all construction notes will comply with the MNRP Bio 5 criteria for grading and construction plans. We must identify all your critical root zones in your trees areas. Therefore, when you submit those grading plans, they need to be reviewed and approved by an arborist or a qualified biologist. And on top of that, on your grading plans, you would also identify where you're going to protect around the trees. This was a critical component in the design of this area C2 area. Go a little bit further when we're actually lotting out and designing the lot. This is a typical lot lot designed to protect an existing oak tree, where we put the fencing, we're keeping a separation with the square footage of the house, floor plan away from the tree, and we're designing around it. There was also a component that we are proposing is about long-term maintenance, because we do want to protect the trees, and who is responsible to protect those trees. The HOA will be responsible to monitor the existing oak trees in the public spaces. The CCNRs will then for 5 years to make sure that there's no impacts to those trees, and then come up with suggestions. If there happen to be impacts, they'll come up with suggestions to the landowner of how to rectify any potential problems. With that submittal and review with the Director of Community Development. Front yard landscaping. We have different components of landscaping in the front yard, but we did adhere to the BSP of having water efficient landscaping, prohibiting turf and parkways, limiting the amount of turf in the front yard. If the front yards would like turf, they would comply with the city's zoning ordinance about turf maintenance and turf installation in front yards. Water quality basins, that the locations of them are in the same location that is proposed, as well as the planting of them. We did identify that the basin bottoms could be mulched or planted and irrigated. For example, there is this what's called Juncus plant style that can survive quite a bit, but they would require an irrigation, and that was something that we would have to irrigate if we put that plant material at the basins bottoms. Street tree planting was something that was done in the design and taking into consideration of the street trees. All the trees that are identified in the master development plan are taken directly out of the BSP. There's a variety of different street trees, but they're based on themes throughout the development, and we adhere to that. as well as the identify of the oak tree planting areas within the open space pockets. We identify what type of oak trees could be put there, and all utilize those areas as mitigation sites. The preservation, or not preservation, the wall designs, the specific plan identifies certain wall parameters, and what's highlighted here is the perimeter walls in yellow. They are in the same location as the specific plan. They are designed with the same configuration as well as material and design capacity, as well as understand that it creates the feel of the neighborhood. This is the southern area, which is the area H. Again, the same location of the walls as proposed in the specific plan. There's also what was called the block and stucco walls. And that is created in this location. Again, taken directly out of the specific plan. They are identified in those locations. Both areas again. There's additional fence wall, which we call the privacy fencing material, which is a tubular steel fence, black. That's identified around all the basins. And then we have all the interior fencing. And that's all that's in green, which if I highlighted all that, you'll not be able to see it as well. So it's all the interior fence lines. Would be a fence material, whether it's wood or vinyl, and it would be of earth tone colors, muted earth tone colors. And these are the view fencings as well as the privacy fencings. Included in the wall is the monumentation locations. We've got what's called the entry monuments and the freestanding monuments. The major entry monuments are at this corner of this area. Those monuments are going to be stucco. They're going to be earth tone, muted earth tone, stucco walls. All of the other component entries. Sorry. There, here, here, and down here on this northern half. There we call the entry monuments. They can be freestanding. There's enough area to actually put a freestanding sign, or if there's a choice, they could put in a diagonal attached entry monument sign, wall mounted. There is enough room and space, and we designed that the walls can be designed in that way, those locations as well. Southern half, again, we have a major entry point identified in the specific kind of same location, and the secondary monument locations. The plan that we submitted did include 3 architectural styles. One here is the example is the modern farmhouse. There was also the modern California contemporary and the Mediterranean. And there was a 4th one, which is the prairie. I'll talk to you. I'll explain further in my presentation about that, because that is a new style that was presented. But these 3 styles are similar to what was in the specific plan. Development of the individual lots, we took into consideration of the design standards. So development standards, we are in compliance with the front yard, rear, and side setbacks. There was also other lot development criteria that we looked at for ADUs, as well as parking open space. All those standards that we identify here are in the same standards that were proposed in the specific plan. Those are where we have been consistent with the specific plan. What this is a summary of changes that we are proposing, minor changes, to the specific plans, which is either a road alignment changes or to preserve oak trees, water quality basin designs. We are proposing 3-to-1 slopes, as well as putting a perimeter tubular fence wall, and then designs development standards regarding setbacks for ADUs and alley loaded lots, and finally the additional architectural style, which is the new one we're proposing is prairie. The minor when I say minor changes, the minor road alignment was this bulb out. In order to protect this oak tree, we actually designed a bulb out around to protect that tree within area C2. And there were some other really minor adjustments, and that was having to do with configuration around the basins, around the development, and that it was very, graphically, it's so minor, it would not be visual to see. Water quality basins, as I mentioned, we were proposing 3-to-1 side slopes, perimeter tubing around basins, as well as we were showing the potential planting and irrigation of the basin bottoms. Development standards. Because of the specific plan did identify ADUs, and we took into design consideration of how to design an ADU on the plan, and we refined it better to look at how we can fit the ADUs on a site. And so we did identify an additional for 10 ADUs would be allowed to be 10-foot front yard setbacks if they're detached ADUs. We also defined the difference between an accessory building and what an accessory dwelling unit is in our master development plan, because we wanted to be clearly identified where we would like to see an ADU located. It was this provided us a clear understanding in the table that where an ADU could be actually located versus just an accessory building. We want a clear definition what that was, so there wasn't any misunderstanding. Alley loaded lots, we did provide allow alley loaded lots to have 3-foot side yards and garages to be 3 to 5 feet setback from the alleyways. That allows us to put in a landscape strip in that area. It gives a little more variety for those garages, so they're not just sticking a garage right on the front of the alley. This did not come up as dark as I wanted it to, but this was different configurations that we're proposing on top, and in addition to is already in a specific plan. It identifies different locations of the alley or ADU locations on those lots. They are compliant with the proposed standards with the front yard setbacks, side yard setbacks. And finally, the summary of proposed changes is this additional architectural style. The style guide in the specific plan identified 4, and it's a guide. And so talking with the city and talking with the developers, this additional prairie style, we looked at what was conducive to the area as Paso Robles, and this is a style and vernacular that we believe would work within Paso, and therefore that's what we applied and included this as a potential style. As I mentioned before, Area G, which is the park site location, and there was a lot of discussion about what's going to happen on the park and when. What you see before you is the vesting tentative map actually initiates the community park development, which means because it creates the lot. So therefore we can move along with the process. From there, we take the preliminary concept plan that was done, and that went through advisory council, and it also created the basis of a budget and the construction budget for the park. Once that park was, the advisory committee approved it and looked through it, the next step, because now we're establishing it as Lot 218, is the understanding that the 150th building permit, the park developer will have to meet with the city They will confirm the costs and then actually go out to bid for that. By the 150th unit. By the 250th unit, they are going to need to start construction of that park. What you're seeing here is this is the next steps for the actual park itself. You're going to go through 50% design. There will be a open house to review that design. Following any potential comments, we will then go back and to the advisory committee and then get final approval of 100% design plans. And if there's some minor tweaks going through that design plans, we'll still be coordinating with the Parks and Recreation Department and to ultimately get the 100% design, and therefore it would then go out to bid and construct. The understanding is there was originally, as the park site was smaller. During the BSP process, the park site grew. And with the understanding that, okay, there was density, there was number of units identified for Area G. And with that, the original units were looking at to be townhome style units. And therefore, the specific plan authorized the direct transfer of those units, 32 of them, to sub-area I and J, because they are of similar uses, and it's also then codified in the development agreement. Sub-area I and J were, as I said, were selected because they were similar small lot configurations. They were for multifamily uses. What we do propose, because we have 205 dwelling units in our investing map and MDP. So that reflects that those 32 units would be transferred to I and J, and that there's additional 11 units available to be transferred to another sub area. And with that, we do make the request. That was part of our project description to request that transfer of those 11 units into sub-area J, and that is allowable through the development agreement per the section density transfer provisions. And so we do want that as part of tonight's action is to actually transfer those into sub-area J. And the reason why there was 11 units, because when we were designing all phase 1A, there was certain limitations, topographic, existing trees, riparian constraints. So there, those things, I mean, add those things all up, we maximized out as many of the areas we could. And with that, we came out with our total of 205 dwelling units, and therefore they basically came out to 11 remaining. And we're like, well, we want to be able to utilize those 11 in the sub-area J. And the criteria, the applicant, in order to transfer that process, the applicant, the owner of that sub-area, has to put in writing, which we did, make that transfer to the new area. And that new area owner has to agree to that. He and the applicant today is the owner of both sub-areas. So they do agree for that transfer. Future DRC items, as Darren did mention, that there's, we went through that process, that flow line, and at the very bottom was future DRC review items, which talked about architectural elements, it talks about materials, and so this reflects what DRC would be reviewing for the future after tonight's approval. They will be reviewing the architectural elements, the fence and walls, community and neighborhood monumentation, and landscaping. When it comes to architectural style, they would be looking at the architectural elements. And this is through the building permit process. So you're looking at the colors, the materials, the window types, and ancillary architectural elements that are tied to the themes that we presented and submitted with our MDP. When it comes to the walls, we have the community perimeter wall, the interior privacy fence wall, and the block wall, which is also stucco. They will be looking at the colors and those materials that will be consistent with the MDP. The community neighborhood monumentation, they'll be looking at colors, materials, lettering size, and styles. Front yard landscaping, they will be looking at a combination of the street trees, because we identify what street trees would be planted, as well as the front yard planting plans that we identified. We have a long list of plants that we identified that are taken directly out of a specific plan. They can choose from those plants and make sure they're in compliance with the configuration of that. When we presented at DRC, there was 4 main topics that were brought up. One was the architectural style of the California Contemporary, the park construction timing, the detention landscaping, as well as track fencing materials. Architectural style, the California Contemporary, we looked at it, we looked at different variations, and with that, we did revise the description of California Contemporary to be modern California Contemporary. Therefore, we have additional new images of different styling of California Contemporary. It gives more variety of housing aesthetics and components for California Contemporary, and we feel that it's that variety, this type, will be more suitable for the Paso Robles area than was originally proposed at DRC. I did hit on before some of the park construction, but the question came up, when's the park going to happen? And with the understanding is we know at the 150th building permit that the developer has to come back to the city and confirm the construction estimates and then obtain bids. From there, it is anticipated that the BSP anticipated that the construction of the park would start in phase 2. And with design efforts commencing prior to the 250th building permit. And that prior to the 250th building permit, sorry, there's a typo there, that once you're under construction, of the park, you have to complete it within 12 months. With all that said, the understanding is the actual buyers of this area understand the importance of this community park and actually have put it into consideration is building that park in this phase 1A because they value the importance of that park. Detention landscaping. Originally, we were looking at different landscaping of the detention basins and what the basin bottoms would be like. And so we looked at that and made that consideration that the basin bottoms could be, as we know, the surrounding of the basins is heavily vegetated. The basin bottom, because a lot of the basins are entry points to the development, that we would be looking at as an option of putting in a planted and irrigated basin bottoms. And one example of that plant could be the juncus. Fence materials were brought up. The Ridge Road, there was a question about the block walls and perimeter wall along the Ridge Road. The reason why instead of having privacy fencing, wood or vinyl, the specific plan actually addressed this because they want continuity. They want that area to be permanent. They don't want a property owner coming in and replacing and having to change out materials. This block walls are made of stucco. They are visually appealing. It's not something that you don't want to have to constantly not to be torn out. And so that is one of the reasons why that block wall, perimeter wall was put and proposed in that area. So with this, you've gone over the master development plan, the development plan, and the vesting tentative map, lotting configuration. We are consistent with the specific plan. We identified that our total acreages are in compliance, our densities are equivalent, our streetscapes, our fence walls, our monumentation, everything you see here, preservation of oak trees, street tree plans, front yards, our design standards, and our architectural styles are all in compliance. And we do recommend, we support staff's recommendations of the approval of the master development plan and the vesting map, as well as the corresponding conditions of approval, with the one caveat of it states 204 residential units, and it's actually 205 residential lots and 30 non-residential lots. That sums up my presentation. We do have people in the audience that are available for questions, and so I'm also available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point in time, we'll ask the Planning Commission if they have questions of staff and the developers team. Start with Commissioner Jorgensen.
Yes, thank you. I guess my question would be, starting with for staff. I don't understand what we're being asked to review and approve regarding the architectural design. Because it states in here that, in our report, that the designs will not look like what we've been shown. And there are a variety of building types. There's the estate housing, the single-family residence of varying lot sizes. There's the alley access, common wall houses. And I don't see a differentiation. Are all of those available for anything? I mean, I don't see what we're being asked to approve. We're being asked to approve something, and I don't know what it is. So I'm asking staff, what are we being asked to approve?
You're being asked to approve the tentative tract map. And the tentative tract map has been designed in a manner, as has been explained, to be consistent with the specific plan. What's been provided for you is some architectural styles that are indicated in the specific plan of the types of styles that could be in this neighborhood. But it's understood that with big specific plans, that at the time of the specific plan, or even at the time of the tentative map, we may not have the actual builder presenting the lots, presenting the tentative maps. So we may not have the exact home designs for each lots. So what the applicants have done, as requested by the specific plan, was provide the lots, provide the tentative map, and provide some styles that have been used in other parts of town, have been used in other subdivisions that would seem to be consistent with the specific plan, but also be representative of what the market, what the type of home that would be built in these neighborhoods. The conditions of approval of the tentative map, master development plan say, okay, these are being shown, but the final details of specifically what homes will be built, they may look quite a bit like what's up here, the farmhouse style. They may be that way, but we agree with your comment as far as we don't have that level of detail. And the specific plan outlined that level of detail would come back to the DRC review. So they're showing how the lots have been designed consistent with the specific plan. There are architectural styles. The architectural styles have gone steps further than the specific plan, but they haven't got down to the detail where we can look at it and say, okay, let's submit for a building permit. Because we want to get down to that information at the DRC level, and that's the way the specific plan outlined, and that's what these applicants have provided. We happen to have, they're in contract with somebody who is looking at building the homes, and they're going to provide additional information to come back to the DRC to show those specific types of homes and materials.
Why then tonight are we being asked to approve names of so-called styles with some drawings, some photographs, some this, that, and the other? It looks like it's just a cut and paste. It's not specific to this project. Can we approve this without comment on that, so that and that then when specific design, not architectural elements, architectural design. Elements are pieces. Design is a whole. When the architectural design comes back, then it could come back to the Planning Commission for review. Is that a possibility, Darren?
So the condition of approval, and to try and answer that question, to try and get more specific on, because at the DRC, I understood there was some questioning on styles and specifically questioning what's going to come back to DRC. So in order to kind of outline what we have before us and then what the DRC has the ability to do, I included a condition, and it's condition 4 on page 103. And it says, prior to the issuance of a building permits for the houses within any of the phases, and I list the A, B, C2, and H, the following development standards shall be reviewed and approved by the DRC. And I go into house styles. And I said the house styles shown in the exhibits are conceptual and represent styles that could be built within Beechwood Phase 1A for the single-family residential product. The DRC will need to review the final architectural designs for each of the stock and model plans that may or may not be the styles included in these exhibits.
No, I understand that.
It may be determined.
Excuse me. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
It may be determined by the developer and the DRC that specific house styles can be omitted or new styles introduced, as long as it is determined by the DRC the house styles are substantially compliant with the master development plan.
I understand. But that's what my question is. That's what's being proposed for us to vote on, that verbiage.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, can tonight, if the Planning Commission wanted, can we not address these so-called styles that are so poorly defined at this point? They're really meaningless. Because I don't know how to vote for something I don't think has any meaning. And can we just be silent on that and have it come back, have the architectural designs come back when they've been determined to the Planning Commission? It wouldn't, I mean, the idea is not to hold up any other progress on this project whatsoever, but to put that aside as a future review and approval by the whole body, not just the DRC. Is that a possibility? Is there any reason that couldn't be
as part of the
done if the Planning Commission
development plan process before the Planning Commission could put a condition that requested that the specific home designs come back to the planning commission. That is possible to update a condition to allow
Okay.
it to come back to the planning commission.
Okay,
And I understand, what you're talking about in terms of detail, and we've got styles in the specific plan. We have styles in what's being proposed by the applicant. And the idea could be that in order to move this, be comfortable with moving this along further, maybe those come back to the planning commission as opposed to the DRC, is what it sounds like you're saying.
yes. And if we did that, then am I correct that there would not be a reason for the planning commission to approve these proposed styles tonight?
Can you repeat that?
If we proceeded as you just stated, would the planning commission then have the option of not addressing these proposed styles tonight and approving the other, everything else that's being requested of us?
Yeah, I think in the end, whether it's at the DRC level or if it ends up being the planning commission, they need to be consistent with what's in the specific plan. But there would be the findings of needing to be consistent with the specific plan.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
And I think this is something that is under discussion. We can have the opportunity for the applicant team to comment on it when it's time for that.
Okay, my questions were
I understand
processed.
what you're saying. Yep.
My questions were entirely process questions for staff.
Right.
Okay, I'll just let it go at that. I've probably got other questions, but so does everybody else. So thank you very much.
I had a similar question. As I read it, Darren, this whole body wouldn't have an opportunity to weigh in on the architectural style. It would just be a 3-member DRC, so that's not a majority. Is that correct? If it went forward as it's drafted.
Repeat your question, please.
If it went forward as, I'm kind of hearing what Commissioner Jorgensen is saying, if we went forward if we just let the DRC make all the architectural style decisions, we wouldn't have the majority of viewpoint. I guess where I'm coming from is when we voted on this, we all had a vision of what we wanted it to be. It seems like all of us should be able to vote on the architectural styles rather than just 3 of us. So that is, yeah. I guess it's a process question. I read it tonight, it was just DRC that would make architectural decisions. Is that correct?
The intent was that there would be enough information that would show you the styles that are being proposed, and then would show you consistency with the specific plan, and that specific materials and colors would come back. Mm-hmm. But I'm understanding that may not be
maybe a lot,
a comfort. So whether it was set up to go for final details to be at the DRC is possible. But like I said, if the planning commission decides that the specific home designs, home styles, final details need to come back to the planning commission, this body has the ability to require that with this development plan and tentative map.
Okay. And then on page 83 of the staff report, I think I got clarification tonight at the 150th residential project or house, they would have to come to the city on the park. I think on page 83, it says on the 250th home in phase 2, and I just want to make sure that gets clarified, that it's not the 250th home in phase 2.
Can you repeat the
question? On page
again?
83.
83.
It says the development agreement for the Beechwood specific plan required the park to be constructed no later than the 250th home in phase 2. So I just want it clarified. I think that's different from what I'm hearing tonight. the 250th home in phase 2 could be pretty far along in the development, which would be pretty delayed. So I think I heard sooner tonight rather than the 250th of phase 2.
If I can clarify that and respond to that. So what they're indicating is the park site is part of the tentative map that's before you tonight because the parcel needs to be created for the park. Also, with the mapping and with recording the mapping and putting in the tracked improvements, the surrounding curb, gutter, sidewalk improvements, grading, all those kind of improvements are going to be happening with phase 1 for the park. The illustration that's on this sheet, page 83, is part of this specific plan. That is a design that has been reviewed and approved by the Parks and Rec Commission as a conceptual design. The development agreement for the specific plan outlined the timing of what needed to happen for the park. And I think they showed you those slides about 90% drawings at a certain time and the 250th home of phase 2 being when the park needs to start. Those timings are still there. They're not indicating that the park is going to be completed prior to the 250th home on phase 2. What they are indicating is that all those improvements in that park site are going to happen. They're understanding that there is would be a benefit for it to happen sooner. They're saying it would be a benefit for their neighborhoods to happen sooner. But they're not saying that they're going to commit to that park being built from the timing other than what the specific plan and the DA say. They're letting you know that certain things are happening for the park and they're looking at doing that, and we can ask the developer to explain it further if you would like. But what I'm hearing is that they're gonna look into it and they're gonna give it an effort, but we're not in a position, because this is in the development agreement, to require the park to be completed sooner than what the DA information shows.
Let me ask this then. The development agreement was between the applicant and the city manager, or who created the development agreement?
The city council approved it along with the Beechwood homeowners as part of the specific plan.
So you're saying that page 83, the language is correct?
Correct.
That it would be constructed no later than the 250th home of phase 2?
Right.
If I might interject.
You have to be consistent with what
Tonight.
and that.
No, thanks.
Yeah.
Please help me out.
The start of construction at the 250th. Correct.
I'm going to let my other commissioners go. Thank you.
I'd just like to pick up on that for just a second, because I think page 383 may be worded a little bit differently. So the intent for the development agreement is the park construction starts at the 250th building permit out of all of the building permits that will be issued, not just the 250th in phase 2. We don't know how many units are in phase 2. There could be 500, there could be 300. So I just want to clarify, it is the 250th house that gets built, so to speak, that is the trigger, regardless of what phase it's in.
Correct.
Darren.
Thank you.
Darren,
Okay.
can I clarify that?
Sure.
Hi, David Athy, city engineer. Actually, the DA is quite specific, and the park construction has to begin prior to the 250th unit, the issuance of that permit. So at 249, they could still be just building that 249th house, get it finalized. But before the city can issue, the city staff can issue the next permit for 250th unit, they have to start construction. And then it goes on, they have 12 months to finish the park after issuance of, after they start constructing it. So there are specific timelines in the DA that govern the park construction. So I just wanted to clarify that, because just so everybody knows it's, also, I just wanted to just let the commissioners know. So the DA and the specific plan take precedence over the conditions of approval for the tentative map. So if there's any conflict between the tentative map, conditions of approval, and the DA or the specific plan, those conditions would rule the development. So that's kind of how this whole thing was structured when we went through and worked with Planning Commission and went to City Council during those first approvals. So I just wanted to throw that out just so you know that that's how the whole specific plan and development agreement and all that was put together.
Thank you. Commissioner Neal, other questions other than parks?
Just one that, well, it is related to the park, so forgive me. The transfer of the 11 units to, I believe, sub-area J, if I remember the presentation correctly. Is that part of the specific plan? I don't recall.
The ability to transfer the units is part of the specific plan as well as the development agreement.
Okay, and then tonight, do we need to make a specific location for those transfer of units? Or is it just there are 11 available units?
I think they're specific to the sub-area J.
So tonight, we are being asked to move those units from the park to sub-area J.
And Commissioner Neal, I think that's, that's something that having the applicant explain their intent would be helpful.
Well, I would like to know what we're being asked to approve as part of this, not necessarily what the applicant is suggesting.
Yes, I'm Jeff Barfield with Rick Engineering. I was more involved, I think, with the formation of the park requirements and the transfer dwelling units at the time of the Beechwood specific plan approval. What we have two types of transfers occurring. Initially, the park was planned for 6 acres. Then it was decided that they needed a larger park. So it went from 6 to 9 acres. That 3 acres was initially allocated 32 townhome units. So the decision of the council was that those 32 units could be transferred out to subareas I and J. The reason for that was that those 32 units were townhome, affordable type units. The city council was fairly insistent that they wanted those kinds of units to be, retained, so that subareas I and J are the other remaining subareas that allow for townhome or multifamily or small lot development. So it's very specific in the specific plan and the DA that 16 go to area I, 16 go to area J, and they must be either small lot, townhome, attached, multifamily units. So that's the 32 units. Beyond the 32 units, we have 11 additional units that the design of the tentative map could not accommodate due to slopes, oak tree preservation, and the basins were found to need to grow in size. So we lost an additional 11 units. Those 11 units belong to Herod Paso LP. So, this is his particular sub-areas, A, B, C1, C2, and H. And he also is the owner and developer of sub-area J. So he is both the transferee and the transferor. And so the development agreement very, very specifically authorizes that the transferor must approve the transferee. They both have to agree. In this case, they're both Herod Paso LP. So he wishes to retain the rights to those 11 units when he comes in with phase 2 and sub-area J. So does that?
So just to clarify, these 11 units were not a result of the park growing?
Correct. Only the 32 units. Yeah.
Okay. I guess I misheard that in the presentation.
Yeah. I get it.
Any other questions?
I'll answer any more on that if you have them. So
I just have a quick question, Darren. Back to the architectural styles, the Beechwood specific plan did have architectural guidance within it. We saw another iteration tonight. We'll have another iteration that will either go to the DRC or the Planning Commission in the future. Is that a correct statement?
That's correct. The idea is that they would be some type consistent with what's been shown at the different levels.
Yeah, consistency is more than just an exact picture. It's materials, it's shapes, it's form, it's a lot of things. So, okay,
Correct.
thank you. I don't have any other questions at this time. I'll ask Commissioner Covarrubias, do you have questions that you would like to pose of staff?
Thank you, Chairperson Kogler. Darren, just a clarification on the DA that was created and approved. Does that DA also cover things like HOA?
There's plenty of rules related to setting up community facilities districts, setting up homeowners associations. So yes, there are lots of different financial maintenance type mechanisms with the required with the specific plan and outlined in the development agreement.
Okay, because just out of curiosity, I think I overheard a comment made regarding the tree monitoring, the oak tree oversight, something about the HOA was responsible for monitoring those trees for the first 5 years. And then the first thing that came to my mind was what then happens after the initial 5 years. So is that something that's addressed in the DA? Or is that something completely different?
Well, I think the maintenance of the trees had to do with trees not in private lots and had to do with the trees that are mitigation trees for the trees being removed, and that there be a mechanism for the ongoing maintenance to make sure that those mitigation trees and the trees being protected are looked at over time. But I believe that's more specifically to the trees in the common or public areas, not in people's private yards.
Okay, so just for clarity, for my own maybe possible ignorance, I'm seeing the word private and public used a lot in the design here. When I see a road on here that's indicated as private, are you telling me or somebody telling me that there is no access to that road other than to the tenants? How is that monitored?
I think I'll let David Athey kind of explain the road situation and public versus private in this specific plan.
Okay.
Good evening, Commissioner Covarrubias, David Athey, City Engineer. So the project is set up so that there are various maintenance mechanisms for the different amenities in the project. So for instance, the roads that are part of the what we'd call a local road or a residential road are maintained by the HOA. We will have public access easements over those roads, and we'll have utility easements over those roads so we can maintain the different water and sewer lines. However, they'll be maintained by the HOA. Ridge Road and Airport Road will be maintained by the city. Other remaining roads, landscaping, a few different amenities, stormwater basins with part of the HOA maintenance. That is all dictated by the specific plan and the development agreement in terms of who maintains what and for how long and for what, in what areas. And so that we've been very specific about that because we don't want any confusion 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road at this point. So that's the basis of it. Most of the local roads are maintained by the HOA. Some of the street lighting is paid for by the Community Facilities District. City services are paid for by the Community Facilities District. And so there's a couple mechanisms within this development for maintenance, and it's not complicated, but it is laid out in this specific plan fairly clearly.
Okay, David, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you very much. I don't have any other questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gibson, questions?
Yes, thank you. So I apologize. I've heard different versions of this response. I just need to get clarity on this. On page 83, am I now hearing that the words in phase 2 should be stricken?
There's a general affirmation of that, yes. And again, this isn't part of a resolution the way it's on page 83. It was a staff report, so that clarifies it.
Okay, all right, thank you. I want to start off by supporting Commissioner Jorgensen's concerns in regards to having the entire Planning Commission weigh in on the final architecture, elevations, material use, et cetera. I also found the presentation, what we're being asked, be very vague, and a lot of words like could, may or may not, being used, so that honestly I had no idea what we were actually approving, because it seemed like it was an open slate. And I would think it would benefit, because of the size and scope of this project, for those type items to be discussed by the entire Planning Commission. So I think it could be resolved by literally just changing that item 4 from being approved by the Development Review Committee to change those words to the Planning Commission. So first question, lot 205, I believe, is the existing home. Is that intended to be included in the CFD?
Dave Athey, you can answer that question, please.
Commissioner Gibson, David Athey, city engineer. There's general consensus from the applicant group that it is, and so we will make sure that the CFD covers lot 205. The general idea of the CFD is to cover all the lots in the subdivision that are that have a single family residence or a multifamily unit.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, I had just noted that we were going to retain a lot, and so it occurred to me to find out or determine and make sure somebody at least thought of it, that whether that was going to be included or not. So I appreciate your answer. So the preamble to this section had referred to residential single family, but as I'm going through this, and again, I'm not saying this in any sort of negative way, because I highly support this project and the thrust of what we're trying to do here. I think it's much needed, and I certainly don't want to be putting up any roadblocks in this moving forward. But it references 204 lots plus the 1, so that'd be 205. But then on one of the pages, I think it was page 95, it referenced 247 dwelling units. So are we actually then approving that concept of 247? I guess it'd be a multi-part answer and question and answer. Are we being asked to support this, that it's going to be 247 dwelling units, and that I guess the next part of the question, that the difference between the 204 lots that are being developed and the 247 new dwelling units, would those then be ADUs that would be built at the same time as a part of the new construction?
So the 247 units include areas C1, and is it H or just C1?
Okay, because
right. So C1 is includes the lots that make up the 247. But
okay, so if that's the answer, then I'm really lost, because it's very clear in here that it says the C1 is going to be submitted under separate application. Because that was one of my questions. I want to know the timing of that.
So
I was just wondering how we came up with 200. And again, I'm not opposed to that. I'm just trying to have understanding. We have 204 new lots, but there's 247 dwelling units identified on page 95, new dwelling units. What do they consist of? And I'm assuming it would be ADUs. So I just want to confirm that that's what we're being asked to do. And then I guess the third part of the question, if that's the case, do we have any idea in A, B, C2, or H where those would be placed?
Yes. Right, page 95. So the tentative map that's before you is for 235 lots. 235 lots includes 205 lots plus the 30 non-residential lots. What makes up the 247 is the future density on area C1, which is going to be submitted under a separate project in the future. That's not being asked of you tonight. I believe the 247 is coming from the number of units the specific plan identified in phase 1A. However, that area C1 is not part of what you're being asked to approve tonight. Just the 235 in areas A, B, C2, and H.
Okay, but again, there's 235 lots, but only 204 of them are residential. So, and yet on page, I believe it's identified ADUs, which I'm highly supportive of. So again, I'm not trying to say this in any sort of negative way. I'm just trying to have an understanding as to how many units are actually going to be built. Because if we have 205 residential lots, or 204 plus the one that exists, but 204 new residential lots, but we have 247 dwelling units, and it's being proposed that there are going to be ADUs, which again I'm highly supportive of. I'm just trying to understand exactly how many housing units are being developed or being proposed to be developed, and if obviously there's more dwelling units than there are lots, where are the ADUs going to be built? And that confirmation that because they look like on the rough plans, that are identified on page 4 of 16, that the ADUs would be built concurrent and as an integral part of the new homes. I'm just trying to get clarity on that.
Mr. Gibson, I think we're going to see if we can get a little more explanation here. Bear with us for a second.
Right.
Yes, my name is Ray Harrod. I'm one of the applicants here. This phase 1A consists of 204 new single-family dwellings, which are pretty much A, B, C2, and H.
Okay.
One existing home, which is right there on the lower left corner of parcel A. And then C1 has an allotment of 42 dwelling units. So when you add the 204, the 42, and the 1, you get 247 units. 246 will be new units, 1 additional unit. So that gets you your 247. ADUs are not counted in any of these totals. The city would like to see, we have on a table in the specific plan, a minimum number of ADUs we have to build, and there's so many per each area, so they're kind of mixed around. But they also encourage you to do more ADUs because it provides very cheap housing for single people that makes it very hard for them to find housing otherwise. They're not included in this total at all. There's a minimum number of ADUs we have to produce, but there's no maximum that I know of. The city's actually encouraging ADUs as many as we can put in there, but I don't think anyone's going to put ADUs on every single unit. So that hopefully answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Harrod.
Well, it certainly points me in the right direction, Mr. Harrod. I appreciate it. So could you then educate me or remind me then on this phase 1, how many ADUs, the minimum amount that would be built? Because you'd indicated that each area has a certain number.
There's a 22. 20 to 22, there's probably like 3 of them in area A and 7 or 8 in area B and 2 or 3 in C2 and 5 in area H. They're spread out like this, so 20 or 22 roughly, but there is a table, a specific plan that specifically by area tells us the minimum amount we have to do.
All right, appreciate it. So just to repeat this back, just again, trying to just have, so I understand if somebody ever asks me like, what's going on, I can explain it to them. So C1's going to come back at a later time. That's the, it's going to be some sort of multi-level or multi-density housing. There's going to be 204 new lots plus the one existing. And within the 204 new lots, there's going to be somewhere like 20 or 22 ADUs. Is that correct?
Yes. And on C1, it could be a very small lot project. It could be a townhouse. It won't probably be apartments because it's supposed to be something that can be individually owned, smaller lots, smaller price, because we want to get into a moderate price range for that.
Awesome. No, okay. So yeah, I appreciate you taking the time for the clarity. I wasn't picking up that information at all. So I appreciate you clarifying that for me. That's the extent of my questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Gibson. Okay, any other questions for Planning Commission for staff before we open the public hearing? I'm seeing none up and down the line here. Commissioner Gibson, Covarrubias, any last questions before we open the hearing?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay, we will open the public hearing on this item. We've had a lot of questions and discussion thus far, but are open now to any comments and questions that might come from the public or those in the room this evening. I'm assuming we probably don't have any in the room this evening. Do we have some callers queued up?
No, sir, we do not.
We do not. Okay, then we will close the public hearing and bring this issue back to the Planning Commission for discussion. I think I'll keep it the same way we did it. We'll start with those in the room and then we'll come back to Commissioner Gibson and Covarrubias, but I'll go to my right this time and ask Mr. Neal if you've got some discussion points you would like to bring up.
Just the one I'm in favor of having these house styles come back to the Planning Commission. I believe I was the most intransigent Planning Commission member when we were reviewing the Beechwood specific plan and its lack of architectural or design standards, and the fact that we had a wholesale change in a matter of 2 weeks for the design standards. And what I was assured by staff that they would spend the time and make sure that the standards were more thought out and better presented. And I'm not so sure that we saw that this meeting. So I'm hopeful that we will see that at the next. So that is my comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Neal. Commissioner Davis.
No, I think I share that. I think that's body. Oh, sorry. I think it's a huge task to ask a DRC to make decisions on this magnitude of a project when in our last DRC meeting, there was kind of consensus that we didn't like one style, but that was just 3 of us. So I think we need the full body to review the architectural styles, and I would welcome that. I'm very much in favor of this project. I would just like to say the sooner we can get this community park, it's better for the inhabitants of Phase 1. It's better for our community. I think any impetus we can get in getting that moving forward, I would support that. But I do support this project and support it coming back, architectural style coming back to the full commission.
Mr. Chairman, quick comment.
Yes, Commissioner. Yes.
Just letting you know that the applicant team has let us know that they are supportive of changing condition number 4 from the DRC to the Planning Commission, just so that we go for the commission to understand that they've been okay with that.
Thank you. I think that was destined to be a foregone conclusion by us. So we're good. Mr. Jorgensen, discussion points.
I'm glad to hear that, Darren. And I think that resolves a lot, but I still would not be able to vote for anything that implied approval of the design styles that are presented here. So I would also ask my fellow commissioners to consider modifying our resolution so that those are eliminated from consideration, not denied, just eliminated from our approval tonight.
Thank you. I would just kind of affirm that, and I go back to the question I asked Darren of you before. I think we've already got guidance for the architecture that comes out of the specific plan, so now we can interpret that as we go forward as a commission, if this resolution approves the way we think it likely will. So I don't think it's a radical departure. We've already got a statement out there. It's just kind of interpreting now what that's really going to mean. I have no other discussion points. Commissioner Covarrubias, do you?
No, sir, I do have no other discussion points.
Thank you. Commissioner Gibson?
Just the two that are concurrence. I support Commissioner Davis's comments about the park. It just seemed like, I understand it's a cash flow funding thing, but it would seem at some point that having a park, at least that was being built, would make it easier to sell homes. So, and the community desperately needs more parks. So I support that comment. And I would support Commissioner Jorgensen's comment that I believe that there's enough there that we can have this project move forward without really even addressing or trying to come up with some sort of even tentative approval of architectural styles, and still allow the gentleman to move forward with the project, which I think we need to do. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion points by the commission prior to my request for a motion? I will ask if anybody would be brave enough to offer a motion.
I will
Commissioner
dive
Neal.
in with both feet. I'd like to move to approve draft resolution A, approving vested tentative map, tract map 3166, along with list of new street names, and approve draft resolution B, plan development 21-11, subject to site-specific conditions of approval, not including architectural styles. I would like to also propose a change to conditions of approval 4.A to bring specific home styles should return to full planning commission for approval.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion, Commissioner Neal, seconded by Commissioner Gibson. Is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think we'd also want to eliminate then the exhibits that show the specific architectural styles. So we'll change item number 4, and then we'll remove we'll have sheet numbers, sheet 15 of 16, 16 of 16 of the master development plan, which are the two sheets that show the architectural styles.
Is that clear, Commissioner Neal?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay.
And it does address my concern.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval. We have a second. The gist of it is the most significant change is bringing it back to the full commission for the architectural review, and thereby it omits the sheet that reference architecture that's in the packet that we received this evening, sheets 15 and 16, I believe it was that you identified. So with that, any further discussion? I think we had concurrence, did we not, from Commissioner Gibson and Commissioner Covarrubias?
That is accurate.
That's
Okay.
correct.
With that, seeing no further discussion, I'll ask staff to please call the vote.
So that was Commissioner Neal.
Yes.
And who was the second?
Gibson.
Commissioner Gibson? Commissioner Gibson?
Yes.
Commissioner Neal?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I said that. Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
And Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Very good. Thank you.
And that's, so we have one more.
Oh, sorry.
the tentative track map.
That's right, we only did the one. Okay, so we have a second action here, which is approving the tentative track map 3166, which I think, was that not, Darren, actually Resolution A?
So option one included we wanted to include the development plan with the changes to 4, and then include the approval of the vesting tentative map, and then also. Was it, or was it?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay.
Does it need to be 2?
Okay. I think it's all under 1. I just want to make sure we approve the tentative map. And that included the transfer of the 11 units from the. So I think it would be cleanest, Mr. Chairman, if we can make a separate motion on the tentative map. We were specific to the development plan. So maybe we can make a second motion on the tentative map, including the transfer of the 11, just so we're clear and vote on that.
So I will try to move, I will make that motion, but I do want to, all 11 lots are going to sub-area J.
All 11 lots will be transferred in a manner as approved by the specific plan and the development agreement.
Okay. I move approval of draft resolution A, approving vesting tentative track map 3166, including 11 lots to be transferred as per the development agreement. Is that?
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second from Commissioner Covarrubias. Any further discussion? I assume, Darren, there may be a little cleanup that's necessary between the two actions, but I think the intent is clear in what we're doing with both.
Correct.
Arments, very good. Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I'll ask staff to call the roll on resolution pertaining to the vesting tentative track map.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
Commissioner and Chairman Kogler?
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Very good. Now we're done. Congratulations. We wish you the best, and we're looking forward to this proceeding.
Thank you.
All right, continuing with our agenda. Item H is discussion items by staff. The first is the recognition reorganization dinner and the academy schedule. Somebody wants to address that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have a couple items to discuss for the commission. One being the Planning Commissioner Academy or the Planning Commissioner Reorganization Dinner, as well as the Planning Commissioner Academy schedule. Those kind of go hand in hand. Looking at February 27th, 2022 for the date for the reorganization dinner. We'll be getting more specific information for you as we move into the first of the year.
Darren, I will not be able to attend on that day.
Okay, we'll make note of that. Jessica and Marcy have been working to get those details squared away, so that's being continued to work on. So we'll keep you informed with that. And then also the Planning Commissioner Academy is the March 16th through 18th in San Ramon, California. They haven't provided a whole lot of information on what the criteria is or any of the specifics on that, but just kind of reaching out there to take a look at your calendars and see if you'd be wanting to join and go to that conference. So was there anything else I needed to check in with them about on either of those?
There is a document in the staff report package under item 4 that gives you some more information. You can go to the website if you want to see past agendas and so forth. But like Darren said, that this year's agenda is not very well set.
Yeah, at the time of this meeting's agenda publication, the California City Planning Commission Academy had not published their agenda for the March training.
Okay.
But it will only be offered in person next year. There will not be a remote option.
So for the moment, this is kind of a placeholder for the date, more to come.
We know the date, we know the place, but in terms of looking at the criteria to figure out, is it anything new or is it the same, that kind of thing will be coming in the future.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And the 27th is a set date, correct?
Sunday, correct?
Yes, it's the last Sunday in February, which is what has been traditionally used for the reorganization dinner.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions on that from anybody in the room or remote? Hearing none, we will move on to the consent calendar. We have a couple of packages of items, if you will. We have DRC minutes from November 1st, November 8th, November 15th, and November 29th. We have Planning Commission meeting minutes from November 9th. Are there any comments, changes, corrections to those before I ask for a motion to approve those? None in the room. Commissioner Gibson or Commissioner Covarrubias, did you note anything in the minutes?
I did not have any corrections or comments. Thank you.
Same here, no corrections.
Okay, very good. Is there a motion to approve the consent items?
I move that we approve the consent items, Development Review Committee minutes, and the Planning Commission minutes.
We have a motion from Commissioner Jorgensen. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Neal. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Jorgensen?
Aye.
Commissioner Neal?
Aye.
Commissioner Covarrubias?
Aye.
Commissioner Gibson?
Aye.
Commissioner Davis?
Aye.
And Chairperson Kogler.
Aye.
Passes 6-0.
Okay. Other reports. We have a few this evening. The first is the Housing Opportunities and Constraints Committee Zoning Code Update.
Yeah, this is Darcy. So the Housing Constraints and Opportunities Committee will be meeting in January. So we have it on the calendar for January 20th. That's from 3 to 5 p.m. And so we'll be discussing the Uptown Town Center specific plan boundary revisions, which have already kind of gone through HCOC, but we're going to be sending out some mailed notices for residents that live within a certain buffer of that potential boundary change. So we are hoping to get more people and more input for that meeting. And then for the zoning code update, currently our consultant is working on the reorganization of the code, and that will set the foundation for the new version. And then as we move into the new year and probably more into the springtime, we're going to shift gears towards revisions to the content itself. And so the plan is to tackle that one article at a time. So there are proposed to be 5 articles as far as the organization of the zoning code. And then we're going to look at holding study sessions with the Planning Commission with each of those articles so that we can dive into issues more and then get feedback from Planning Commission. And so that would be kind of set the trajectory to towards, once we get through all of those articles, we would come back and, go through more of the public hearing study session, joint study session with council, and that puts us into, I think, 2023 even. So next year we'll be busy, and that's the update for housing constraints and zoning code. Thank you.
Okay, and just to confirm, there are 3 Planning Commission members, I believe, now on the HCOC group, Commissioner Neal, Commissioner Gibson, and myself.
That is correct.
Very good. Any questions that any commission has of Darcy? I think we should ask her some tough ones. She hung all the way through J7 on the agenda tonight with us. All right, Darcy, we're going to let you off the hook. Thank you for that report. That was great. All right, we'll move on to number 8, the Paso Robles Street report.
Nothing new to report on Paso Robles Street this time.
Okay. The item number 9 is the DRC rotation schedule, and I think we want to confirm that we're good with the months that are on the screen, but we also wanted, I think, Darren, to talk a little bit about holiday dates and see about availability based on our conversation yesterday.
Right, so I think really what we're talking about is this Monday, the 20th, coming up this next Monday. I think we have some items scheduled. I think we had some consensus that would work for the current DRC commissioners for December. And then the next 2 would be canceled for DRC. Do we know then? There are some items if the January folks, Gibson, Kogler, and Covarrubias, if there was a meeting on January 3rd, is that something that would work for those commissioners?
This is
Commissioner Gibson. I'm fine on the 3rd.
This is Commissioner Covarrubias. The 3rd was not a good day. I'm out of town, and I believe somebody had already volunteered to cover me, but I could be mistaken.
Yeah.
In the haze of the last meeting, I believe I did, Joel.
And I am available, so you would have 3 of us available for that.
So we'll let you know if there's a DRC meeting on the 3rd.
Okay. Any of the conflicts in those dates or months, I guess, shown December, January, February? If they do occur, we can certainly address those as time goes on. All right, thank you. Planning Commissioner's comments. Let's start remotely. Commissioner Covarrubias, do you have comments you'd like to offer?
Just more of a kudos to the staff again for a job well done. There was a lot on the table today, and wanted to thank everybody for their hard work, and no other comments.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gibson.
I'll just leave it with commending and going along with Rob's comments. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Jorgensen.
Just one comment on the announcement that's currently out for planning commissioner applications. Again, last time it was the same thing and we commented on it. It indicates that there's a DRC obligation for 3 months of the year and it's 5 months of the year. So I just ask again that that be corrected before it gets published and sent out any further this time.
Thank you, we can do that.
Other than that, thank you, everybody, and have wonderful holidays.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, no, I just want to wish everyone happy holidays. And as always, it's a pleasure to work with my fellow commissioners and staff. You're awesome. I just want to say that too. Thank you.
Commissioner Neal.
I wish everyone a happy holidays and enjoy the time with family.
And I echo those as well. I do have one, though, business question I have to throw in. There's an update out right now on the Estrella subdivision EIR that deals with 3 different topical items, I think, that are being re-advertised, so to speak, for comment. And I'm just curious whether or not the city has any comments that are going to be addressing any of those points. And then I presume from that point, the process will go on.
I'm sorry, Chairman Kogler, I didn't hear what EIR you
I'm sorry, the Estrella subdivision and reinforcement project, the electrical line project that we reviewed and the Planning Commission reviewed. It has been republished for comment by January 18th, I think it is, but it's on 2 or 3 topical areas. There was some aesthetic aspects and some other things, and I don't know that they're germane to what the city's interests were, but I know the city had commented on that, and so just curious if somebody is reviewing that to make sure that the city's interests are watched out for.
Yes, I know that that's been discussed with Community Development Director as well as the city manager. So I'm sure they're involved with providing some comment on that circulation.
Very good, thank you. And then I guess in closing, it's kind of amazing. This is our last meeting of the year. I hope that 2022 brings a different year, at least as we get into it, so that we can shed some of the facial attire and things as we move forward. So cross our fingers. But with that, happy holidays, everybody, and staff comments.
You know, I just want to thank the commission on a good year. You could say it's been challenging, but it's nice to be here. We haven't done this in quite a while, even given presentations. So it's nice to see everybody. Thank you for your patience with presentations tonight. I do appreciate all the comments, and I think we ended up with a better direction for that item and that group. And is any other staff? I think we answered the questions on the reorganization dinner and the League of Cities. Katie, anything to add? So as far as that goes, no further staff comment.
Okay.
Happy holidays.
Thank you. With that, we'll seek a motion to adjourn. Do we have a motion? So moved by Commissioner Jorgensen, second by me. All in favor, aye? Aye. We're out of here for this year. Thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.